This channel supports Extra Life in its efforts to raise money for the Children's Miracle Network. For more information about how to donate and join in their efforts, go to the link displayed here. Extra Life. Play games, heal kids. What up, everybody? This is your boy Black Magus, and this is the condensed, spoiler-free version of my Narcos thoughts and review. Finished season 2 not too long ago, and just went on a 25 minute rant about season 1 and 2 and how great the show is, giving all the spoilers in the world. So this one, I'm going to leave spoiler free and just give you guys my brief thoughts on it. Narcos is an amazing show. If you don't know what it's about the DEA's fight against the rise of cocaine trafficking in the 80s and 90s. In particular, they focus on Pablo Escobar and his rise and eventual fall from power. That's not a spoiler, people, so don't get upset. If you pick up a book, a history book maybe, you'll know that Pablo Escobar was probably the most prolific drug trafficker ever in the history of the world. This one man had at one point became like the third, fourth richest man in the world off of just selling cocaine. He pushed tons and tons of cocaine, so much so that he could lose 10 tons to the government and still get 150 in the country. He was that fucking ridiculous with his. He also was a terror. He killed lots of people in his time, policemen, innocent people, rivals. He was just the fucking, he was a monster on every level. He's one of those figures that you don't celebrate necessarily, but part of you has some admiration for, because especially when you see this show, when you watch this show, you get a good appreciation of just the things that he was able to do and to stay on top so long doing the things he was doing while being this menacing terror. It's like, how'd you do that? How'd you pull that off? Now, the show is not totally rooted in reality. Yes, it's a good overview of historic moments and things that happen, but it's not necessarily 100% accurate. There are going to be some things that happen that didn't happen. People are going to die that didn't die. You won't know who, because they're not going to tell you who, but if you do research, you'll find out. So just a heads up on there. But the show's so well done that it doesn't matter. It's like, it doesn't matter that some of these people may not have existed. Some of these people get killed off, but in reality they didn't, or they live and in reality they died, or anything like that. It's just a very fucking entertaining show that you'll like, because the acting is good, the writing is well done. They just do a phenomenal job overall, season 1 and 2. And I can't think of anything really negative to say. I guess the most negative thing I could say, I said, and that's there's inaccuracies in the telling of history, but we've known over the history of entertainment media, movies, TV shows, things like that, with the exception of documentaries, which still has holes in it itself sometimes, because they don't always talk about everything that goes on. They'll gloss over some key facts in their material. It still represents the situation very well, especially if you're someone who was around in the 80s and 90s and heard all this stuff. Like, I was a kid growing up when all this was going on, so by the time they got to the end of his tale, I was then old enough to be able to comprehend, but it was like I had missed all the like small details that the show covered. So I just knew this was that guy that got hunted down and eventually caught. One of those big guys in the early '90s that the government were going after in a high profile way, because there was a lot of people back then. Trust me, we hunted down a lot of people in the early '90s and beyond. I would say early '90s to late '90s, early 2000s. There were a lot of big name people on the CIA and DEA's list that we got like fantastical tales about over time. But this is a great tale. I think you'll enjoy it. I don't think it's necessarily a celebration of this guy, which is good. You know how a lot of times when you get these profiles of real historic figures in media, they tend to kind of like build them up into these like characters, like with Public Enemies, how they did John Dillinger a bit. They kind of romanticize this story. They don't romanticize this. This is a very brutal show. There are moments where you see him and you're like, oh wow, you can see the humanity in him, but they make sure not to just try to they don't necessarily demonize him. They don't necessarily go overboard in humanizing him. It ends up being, to me, in my opinion, very well balanced, so that you get a good idea of like what this person would be in real life. And they do that with just about all the characters on the show. You know what I mean? So it's it's really, really cool. Well done, guys. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. Highly recommend it. Highly, highly recommend it on my list. I gotta say, Netflix, man, they tend to knock it out of the park with their shows. Not many shows that I've seen from Netflix that I could say bad things about. I can point out certain critiques, but overall, the products is all solid. Great to watch. But anyway, as always, you guys feel free to hit me up. Let me know what you think, and I'll holler at you later. This your boy Black Makers, and I'm out, y'all. Deuces.